You're listening to God Can I Hold a Dollar, the podcast brought to you from Reset Budgeting and Financial Coaching with Janine Victor McDade, owner and principal consultant. The podcast that bridges real world conversations, no shame, no shade, and the word of Christ all in one. Hey, resetters. Happy Friday to you. Happy post-Juneteenth. I was working and being of service that day. I really wanted to get something out that day, but it just didn't happen. But, we celebrate Black people, Black pride, Black accomplishment, Black achievement every day. But happy post-Juneteenth, y'all. Thank you for your grace. In my last recording, I told you all I was going to do my best to get it out on a Thursday, but I wanted to be extremely realistic because a sister was just moving mountains. And so shout out to my little sister, Janelle Victor Robinson, for, man, we were just a dynamic duo and getting things done. As I said previously, we were charged by my dad. My dad is at 82 now and has since moved to Chicago. And so his home, we were able to put his home up for sale and have a buyer. And so, of course, what that means is that it's time to clear out all of the things that have made it a home for you so that the buyer can make it a home for themselves or for someone else or what have you. And so that was a lot of work in St. Louis heat, up and down basement stairs, and my dad being the avid collector. I gave y'all a few details. It just was a lot. Please know, it was a lot. It was a lot of grit. It was a lot of hustle. It was a lot of sweat equity. It just was a lot of work, but we went there to accomplish a goal. And so I will tell you, when you give a Black woman, and I'm just going to specifically talk about myself, when you give me a goal and something that I have to accomplish, I am going to do everything in my power to make it happen because I'm a woman of my word. And I truly, if there has to be something that is in place that does, blocks me from letting that happen. And there's going to be a contingency plan. There's going to be a plan B, a C, a D, or what have you, because I've just always been driven in that way. But anyway, just catching you all up with what's been going on with me. So thank you for the grace to be able to rest up a little bit, return to work, get back into the swing of things, collect my druthers, so on and so forth. And so we're back with another episode for you. And in taking care of my dad's cleanup, of his home, a couple of things were not lost on me. Number one, like I said, I told you from the last episode, one man's trash is another man's treasure, right? But the other thing, number two, is, okay, Janine, you got some clutter to take care of. Like, you've got some things that you need to do to just kind of clear out some clutter and minimize a little bit. Really had that reality. And that there are probably a lot of things that are just around and in existence here in my home that could absolutely be another person's treasure. Not saying it's trash, but maybe it's not serving me, right? It's been, it's existed in my home. I've had it for a long time. Maybe it doesn't have sentimental value to it. It could be benefiting somebody else. And so I'm looking at my home and the things in my home in a little bit of a different way. So that's where my mindset is. But this episode is not about my dad's cleanup and what have you. This episode, interestingly enough, I've titled Dave Ramsey Changed My Life, and reflecting and running into a Pinterest pin, actually, interestingly enough. I thought about this journey, where Janine is now and all the life lessons that I've learned and all the things that I've had to do and the sacrifices and so on and so forth. It takes me back to where some of these roots started. In 2014 is when the roots of Reset were born. But I would say my journey started definitely in the 2000s. We might be talking about 2004, 3, even earlier. There were not There wasn't an Instagram, there weren't influencers, there weren't people that looked like me, that were young like me, that were in the same type of experience, career wise, family wise, so on and so forth, that were like me. And so for many of us, there were just the Susie Ormans, that had a lot of visibility, and the Dave Ramseys. And they are definitely two of the most influential people that I studied when I really got to the point where I was tired of just being broke or tired of not having options. What I've learned about myself is that I like to be able to have options. I don't like the word no. And so I try to do my best to not create behavior that inflicts the word no on my life or any situation. I like to be able to choose. And so those are two of the most influential folks who were speaking about money at the time. And very clearly, their experiences are different, right? The elephant in the room, right, is that I am a Black woman. They are not Black women, but one is a woman and one is a man. And so what I was able to do is from Dave Ramsey, take the practicality of what he offered. Some of his things that he speaks about is also faith-based. And what I was able to take from Susie was, while she's not a Black woman, she looks at things from a woman's point of view in regards to finance and making sure that you are secure as a woman. So there were some things that I could take from each that I could apply to myself. I came across this Pinterest pin, and by all means, feel free to search it out on your own, called 20 of the best Dave Ramsey tips that will make over your money today. If you're not familiar, Dave Ramsey he's known for a lot of things, but for me, he's best for the money makeover. And Dave Ramsey, interestingly enough, also has a reach into the church because a lot of his products are faith-based. Churches have even adopted his programming as well. And now that I, have been doing this work for a while, I'm on the other side of quite a few years of my initial journey. I can take a look at Dave's principles, and I have some similar insight that I did, 10, 15 plus years ago. But there are some things also that I look at Dave's tips and I'm like, And so I figured that we would go through a few of those. So there are 20 tips. I'll break them down. I'll break them down into 5 tips each. And I'm going to give my take on them based on my own experience and then also based on the experiences that have been shared with me, with my clients, and through my clients over the years. So one of the first things that was indoctrinated into me from Dave Ramsey was Dave Ramsey's baby steps. So part of the Total Money Makeover product, but he has 7 baby steps that people should take into account as you start your journey. So with everything, you've got to take into account behavior. That is one of the things I like about Dave Ramsey's philosophies about money, is that his money management really talks about behavior. That is also really core to what I do as well with my clients. It's centered on faith and what the Bible says about how we should actually manage our money and what God's intention for us is and how we should live and how we should live abundantly. And it also has to do with, a change of behavior. Because anything that we do, be it money management, how we eat, usually there's some behavior behind that. And then we have to unravel what drives our behavior. So that's one of the things, that's one of the synergies that connected me to Dave Ramsey. But Dave's baby steps, he has 7. 1 is save $1,000. 2, pay off all consumer debt. 3, save 3 to 6 months of expenses. 4, invest 15% in retirement. 5, save for kids' college. 6, pay off your mortgage early. And 7, give generously. And we're going to start there. So once again, I'll break down the 20 in 5 chunks, but we're going to start with the Dave Ramsey baby steps. Now, number one is save $1,000. And if you're one of my clients that's listening to the podcast, this should sound familiar because I absolutely subscribe to this particular baby step. And here is why. I call it Murphy's Law, what the universe, whatever you want to call it. But I tell you, when you put your intention out there, when you speak your intention to make a change, whether it's financial or not, you're gonna see adversity. And I prepare my clients to expect it. Don't be surprised by it. And so what Dave Ramsey teaches is that you want to have $1,000 saved up before you start paying off a dime. You want to have it liquid. You want to have it accessible in cash because something's going to break that's never broke before. Something's going to need changing. Something's going to need repairing. There's just something that's going to happen that is going to drive you to behaviors that you've already established that has gotten you into the situation you've been in. It's going to drive you to put something on a credit card or get a payday loan or borrow or do something because you said you wanted to change your behavior and you wanted to live well and change your financial outlook. It never fails. So the $1,000 makes sense. Have it. Usually the emergencies, you can solve emergencies, pretty much emergencies that are going to pop up. You could solve that with $1,000. And so what that does is that prevents you from adding on more debt to your situation. But what it also does is when you have to do that, it can be defeating for some people. And then you just throw away the whole aspect of really buckling down and changing your financial aspect altogether because it looks like, well, this is just never going to work. I'm just never going to get out of debt. Anytime I try something, then something comes up, so on and so forth. So it is a very small way to prepare yourself to know something's going to come up. So I absolutely agree with baby step number one of saving $1,000. Baby step number two, pay off all consumer debt, pretty much a giveaway. Debt is debt. And I know some people classify good debt versus bad debt. There are reasons that you go into debt intentionally, and then sometimes there's debt that really shouldn't have happened at all. I don't classify and look at anything as good or bad. Debt is debt. If you have something that you owe someone, right? You're paying someone back for, it truly is not your own. You don't own it. It's debt. And there's reasonable debt and there's smart debt. If you are opening a business or you're doing something of that nature, you are intentionally thinking about going into debt. And then, of course, how to manage that debt. But we all know the consumer debt, that's the debt that we probably shouldn't have put on the credit card. We probably knew we weren't supposed to do that. We want to just pay off all consumer debt. That's pretty much a given. I absolutely agree with that. Number three, save 3 to 6 months of expenses. That's that emergency fund, folks. There are some that will prescribe, save 12 months. I say save as much as you can, but 3 to 6 months, I absolutely agree with that as well. That's a really good starting point, especially thinking about the climate now. 2023 was a rough year. Left and right, you saw layoffs. Once again, I experienced it myself being laid off in April of 2023. And so while I was very lucky to be able to be afforded a wonderful severance package and some extension of care from my previous employer, it's not lost on me that everyone does not get that. Everyone does not get a golden parachute or an umbrella for a soft landing. And so you absolutely want to make sure that you have enough money to cover your expenses. Now, we're not talking about your variable wants expenses. We're talking about your core expenses for you to be able to actually maintain your living. And that is your car note. If you have a car note, because you got to get around, you may need to get to interviews. That is your mortgage, your rent, your groceries, your internet, because most job hunting is done there. It may not include your Netflix or your Apple TV. It's your cell phone, right? Because those are pretty key, right? Those used to be luxuries, but we know now cell phones, internet, they're they're pretty much part of your core. And so those are the things that you want to think about in regards to 3 to 6 months of expenses. You don't want to be stressed out on how am I going to keep a roof over my head? How am I going to keep the water on? How am I going to pay keep lights on? You want to have that cushion to be able to fall back on, because at this point in time, it is absolutely taking 3 months is a luxury for some people being able to find a new job. 6 months on average. So that definitely is smart, even more so now, to do that. Number 4, invest 15% in retirement. A lot of jobs, 15% is the cap that you can invest in a investment product such as your 401k, so on and so forth. It's a really good number based on what your take home pay, I would say, is. Or if you have the opportunity to invest in your 401k before taxes, if you have an automatic deduction that can happen from your paycheck, if it's connected to your job, 15% to your retirement is wonderful. There is a caveat to that. Some people, 15% would be a hardship to invest that much money and not have enough money take home to meet your needs and even pay off some debt. So the caveat, extension to that I will share to Dave Ramsey's advice of invest 15% in retirement is that it is okay to do that gradually. I would not recommend you just go in and just change your deductions to 15%. You are going to see that. You are going to feel that in your check. If that is something that you haven't done and you haven't done enough research in your household to know, can you handle that? Because whatever deduction you're going to go with, you want to make sure that you set it and forget it, right? Old school Ronco, right? You want to set it and forget it and make sure that 15% is going into a retirement product, or if you are using an IRA. But you want to think about what is financially feasible and realistic for me. So for me, especially in my payoff journey, I knew it was really important that I contribute something to my 401k. In a couple of episodes back, we talked really in depth about 401ks, and I shared some of my experience. One, because time you cannot get back, and money compounds over time, interest. Those things, that the time is the earlier you can start investing, those things are your benefit, and you cannot duplicate that. You cannot make that up. You cannot make up time. But I also had a match at my job, and it just made no sense to me, even then, to not have my job match what I was doing. So at the very minimum, at that time, it was 6%. It was a 6% match of 80% of my contribution. At the very least, I was making sure that I contributed that to get up to the 6% match. So I say, do what you can. It's important that you have a budget. I'm swinging the budget for a minute. It's important that you have a budget, that you know your number. What's the number that my household functions on? What's the money that's going out? What's the money that's coming in? What's the number that's left every month? That you know what that is, so that you know how you can invest. And so if you have to start at 6% like I did, or whatever that percentage is, be mindful of, does your employer match? If you're dealing with a 401k product, a thrift savings product, whatever their savings vehicle is, do they have a match? And try your best to do the minimum of what they match. Get that money, okay? Get that money, bank on the time that you have, and then continue to actually grow your percentage of contribution. So when I started advancing in my career, and any time that I would receive a promotion, even if it was like a 2%, increase to my salary or what have you, if I got 2%, my 401k got 1%. And so I would just bump it up and bump it up and bump it up. And I'm still continuing to do that. Once again, I was laid off, so I kind of had to bring my little percentage down a little bit when I got my new job because I needed to make sure I had some money available to put into some areas and get things back and, back on track. And that's okay. Remember, you have options. And so that was how that worked for me. And so every time I, got a promotion or every time I got a pay increase, I increased my 401k at least 1%. And because I didn't miss it. I was already maintaining on what I was making. This was the extra. This was the and then some. And so I didn't miss it. It didn't create a hardship for me. It did not feel like a pain point until you get to the 15%. But by all means, God bless y'all. If y'all can jump in and do 15, man, you got it made. I wish I was able to do that. All right. Number 5, save for kids' college. I absolutely am in favor of this. The way that you save for your kids' college, you want to be conscious of. So once again, I am not a financial consultant. I do not, provide financial advice. And so I do highly recommend that you consult a financial consultant, a financial advisor to discuss your specific situation. But nowadays, you all, a couple of years ago, number 5, I would have absolutely been like, yeah, absolutely save for kids' college. And I'm still pro save for kids' college. But what I've seen over the years, as I think you all have seen as well, is that there are some children who are not attending college. They are just choosing not to do so. And so they may be going into trades. You have, like my kiddo, I share with you all. He's been wanting to be a YouTuber since he was about 5 because that's what he has seen. And that's a viable actual path. For a lot of people, there's representation of what that looks like and how that can be fruitful and how you can make money. And so because he's seen that that's an opportunity as a career, that's what he likes. And so, like I said, he's almost 8. We'll see. We'll see. So what I say to that is absolutely save for your kids' college, but consult your financial advisor on what vehicle that you use, because there are some financial instruments out there that you can only use the money for college. And if you have a child as they start to grow and you start to see that they are either one that may not be wired for college. We have a kiddo who went to college for about a year and he decided, oh, hey, this ain't for me. I actually want to go into the military. My family member as well, college just wasn't for her and she wanted to go directly into the workforce. You take the risk of not being able to utilize that money and having that money locked into that particular investment instrument. So once again, get in touch with a financial advisor, not giving advice, but just thinking about what I am doing and what I would do, as my kiddo gets older, is thinking about some instruments that are specific to college, but also making sure that I am investing in some instruments that can absolutely be just, flipped on over to my son. And it doesn't necessarily have to be directed to college. It can be, but the money is not locked. So check that out. But saving for kids' college, I would say save for your kids' future. And if college is a part of that, by all, wonderful, celebrate. But it may not. And so have a alternative where you can still provide some type of support and funding if your children are deciding to pursue their dreams in a different way. Number 6 is pay off your mortgage early. I really love this. And this, interestingly enough, I've had a conversation with a few people, is a little controversial, but it also, once again, is about your personal situation. So pay off your mortgage early. Why do that? A couple of reasons. One, the mortgage payment is usually the biggest payment for a household. It's usually the payment that takes the most out of the household, the most money out of a household each month. The other thing is that depending upon the type of loan that you have, I'm always a 30-year girl. until it makes sense to go to a 15-year, but I'm absolutely one that is about a fixed mortgage. That's my preference. There are definitely other options out there, but paying off your mortgage early, once again, gives you options. If you can recoup that money back into the home to utilize it to invest or whatever the case may be, by all means, feel free. You have heard Eric and Gina Hopkins talk about their desire to pay off their home so that they have that money to invest and save and rehab their home. It's just a huge chunk of money, one of the biggest chunks of money that usually leaves the home. So to be able to get that is wonderful. The controversy on that and some of the conversations that I've had is that there are some people that I've talked to where their home and their mortgage is their tax shelter. If they didn't have the mortgage insurance to actually claim because their kids are all grown up or what have you, then they really would owe a buku amount of taxes. And I get that. Part of me says, I understand, understand that. And so I believe from the conversation I had, these folks they may have like 15, no, maybe 20, 25, $30,000 left on their mortgage. And they just decide not to pay that off so that they can have some kind of mortgage interest to pay. It may be a little more than that, but it's not a whole lot. Part of me, understands that. The other part of me says, well, if you're paying the mortgage company this money for the mortgage just for the write-off, doesn't it wash itself out anyway? Couldn't you have this money in the household? And even though your taxes may be a bit higher because you don't have that mortgage interest, could it possibly be a wash? Once again, absolutely a conversation that I'm sure we'll have with their financial advisor. If that's something you also think about, definitely have that conversation with their financial advisor. You never know. The taxes that you may owe may be absolutely way more than if you hung on to your mortgage. But knowledge is power. And so you want to know what's the best way to go about it. Because I can imagine that if they could pay their mortgage off and not worry about it and, be assured that their taxes weren't going to just absolutely blow them out the water, I think they would do it. I look forward to it. I absolutely look forward to it. And last but not least, give generously. That is absolutely my motto. And really, honestly, like that one for me is a number one because in the way that I give generously is I give the Lord's tithes. And that really isn't giving. I'm literally paying back 10% of what the Lord graces in my hand. So my giving, like I said, is the Lord's tithe that I owe him, my offerings. If I see someone in need, the money I can just take out of my wallet, to share, that's how I can give generously. But when you have money left over in your household, when everything's taken care of and you still have an abundance of money available, how many people can you donate to or support or what have you, where there are, tax advantages to being able to do that and write-offs for being able to do that. So not only does your heart feel good with your intention to be able to serve someone, but you absolutely get an opportunity on the back end to receive some tax benefits from that too. So y'all, that's Dave Ramsey's baby steps and my take on his baby steps. Much has not changed since I first started studying Dave Ramsey and taking into account his techniques as well. And of course, with reset budgeting and financial coaching, have absolutely expanded on some of these core foundational principles. But these are some of the things that got me started on my journey that helped me, close out the various credit cards that I had and get my credit score from a 529. This was kind of the foundation. This was the start. And like I said, I now, am pretty much still in alignment to this day. Just, number 4 and number 5. So number 4 was invest 15% in retirement. I do agree with that. Just the approach you wanna be considerate of. Number 5, save for the kids' college. Just don't put all of your money. I'm speaking from experience and wanting to really help listeners be mindful of diversification. Saving for your kids' college. I personally will not be putting all of my money in a college instrument, but once again, talk to your financial professionals. They will fill you in. And last but not least, paying off your mortgage early. Those are only the really 3 where there's a little bit more discussion. Everything else is pretty straightforward. All right, y'all. So I am so curious. What do you think about Dave Ramsey's baby steps? Which one are you in alignment with? Have you done any of these baby steps and what have the outcome been? So please make sure that you listen to this episode, engage with me in the comments. Let me know an answer to some of these questions, and we will absolutely dig into the top 20 of his best pieces of advice for financial transformation to make over your money. And let's see. Let's see what Dave has to say in these 20 next week. All right, y'all. Have an amazing, amazing weekend. God bless you. Make good decisions this weekend. And if you're on the Nothing New Challenge, if you're on the NNC, post a video this week. That's my challenge to you. Between this episode and next episode, post a video this week. Tell me how you're doing and tag me in it. Are you having to check yourself? Are you doing well? Have you seen some money that is sitting in your bank account? I know I have. And I'm like, okay, is everything paid? Like I see a few couple of $100 in there and I'm like, okay, everything paid. Is there anything coming up? Because I normally don't see that amount floating around. So I'm doing good so far, and I want to see how y'all are doing too. All right, peace out, y'all, and I will talk to you next week.